Welcome to Cape Connect. Cape Connect, a show about people, about Cape issues, about organizations and possibilities. And the possibilities for our show, we've got Nina Schuessler, and we're going to be talking about things in Harwich, things in your career over the many, many years. Though you've lived here, you tell me, 40 years. I've only been back to the Cape since about 20 years. But I was here in middle century, and things were very different than Woods Hole as a scientist, oceanographic, which is now called WHOI, and the MBL. And I've seen so many changes occur, but you've seen changes over the year too. You've seen changes in the town that we live in right now, in particular the East Harwich. We met the very first time at a planning board committee where they're deciding what to do with that intersection of 39 and 137.
Right. Well, I've lived in East Harwich for 40 years. We bought a house there in, I guess it was 1975, right after I graduated from college and got married. And we bought an old Greek Revival on Queen Anne Road, near Cemetery Road. And my husband was young and a builder at the time, and he took it upon himself to really rebuild the house. And you know, we loved the idea of at the time we were moving to the country, you know, because it was sort of like right after college and the hippie era, you know, 2 cats in the yard and all that. And so we bought this house. We found an acre and a half of land with this old crumbled down Greek Revival, and my husband rebuilt it. And you know, eventually I had a few horses in my yard. And
you were a rider.
I was a rider, and we used to be able to ride all over, you know, East Harwich and the Cape. And it was really a beautiful time in my life. I had a barn, and we used to ride where Stop and Shop is now. There was this big dust bowl. And I think I mentioned it at that planning board meeting that, you know, years and years ago, at one of the town meetings, they wanted to put in a Mayflower Place, which would have been like assisted living facility.
A nursing home.
And the whole town went up in arms, and they said, no, that will ruin the rural nature of East Harwich. And sure enough, you know, maybe we should have had that, because now we have the huge box store Stop and Shop, which I'm sure is a convenience for many, many people, but it certainly took away from, you know, the small town quality and the rural nature of East Harwich.
And now they want to develop that area, and the planning board is submitting a proposal to the selectmen, which may come before the voters.
Right.
And are they looking at the right things?
Well, I wonder about that, because I think that, first of all, the infrastructure, the roads in East Harwich can barely handle the amount of traffic that's there now. And I think it's going to it gets a lot worse in the summer. There's been you know, huge jams, and there's been accidents at that corner. And I think that, you know, like the East Harwich Village Collaborative got together. They were mandated by the town years ago to come up with a plan to zone East Harwich, and that was with Ted Nelson and Carol Ridley, and really great people from the Association of the Preservation of Cape Cod, people who were knowledgeable and thoughtful, and they came up with a zoning plan. And I don't know why there's even a question as to whether that should be the plan that we go forward with. To me, it seems that people are making arguments for the sake of argument, when their plan has a certain aesthetic. It has a village aesthetic. It takes into account the watershed, the Pleasant Bay Association, and it also takes into account the huge amount of traffic that we face. So to me, I mean, I'm a layman, I don't have a lot of expertise in town planning, but I think if you live in an area like Cape Cod, you should have a certain sensitivity towards architectural aesthetics, towards signage, towards the people who live here in terms of, you know, walkability. You know, we have an aging population, and we also need to have the kind of businesses that will keep young people here on the Cape.
Yes.
And there's not only the infrastructure of the roads that I'm concerned about, but I'm really concerned about who we are as a community in terms of how we are servicing our children and our young people and protecting the Cape for the future.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, well, we'll have to see how that develops, because I don't think they're being as sensitive as they could be to the amount of excessive growth that can occur right at that spot.
well, it's true, and it's, I mean, if there's going to be excessive growth, you have to look at the area. I mean, they just made it like the Six Ponds area, and that means it's a ecologically sensitive area.
Yes.
Am I correct? I mean,
Yes,
you know
indeed.
more about that than I
Yes.
do.
Yeah.
So,
Well, it does have a portion of that in that R2 zone, that's true. And they're looking for what they call offsets as they build tighter there. They want it to be less tight elsewhere.
well,
Yeah.
I don't, you know, that might make sense. I'm not really sure, but I think that what I'm really concerned about is that it's something that affects the entire town and the entire Mid-Cape. And I would hate to see East Harwich end up looking like 134 in Dennis. You could be anywhere in the country when you pull into
That's quite true.
Marshall's and Stop and Shop. There's nothing about it that has any sensitivity that says that we're on Cape Cod. And I think, like, if you go to places in California, like Santa Barbara, and places like that, they're very aware of the ecology and of the natural growth, you know, in terms of the trees and protecting it and making it look like it's a pretty place to come. And you know, you wonder why. And it's the same kind of blight at Ayano Road, coming right off of that beautiful airport that beautiful terminal they just built. There's this incredible blight. And to me, it's very, very sad, because I remember when Mildred's Chowder House was there, and you know, it was sort of an exciting place to be. Now there's not a tree in sight, and every business they build, they don't seem to take into any account what it looks like as a whole.
I see.
You know,
Yeah,
so.
it misses that, yeah. Well, you have this aesthetic ability because you're in theater, and
Right.
that's where your real talents, I understand, are able to come out over the years, and that's at the other end of Harwich,
Right.
almost into Dennis.
In Dennis, and I have to say, we're in West Harwich. We're Cape Cod Theatre Company, home of Harwich Junior Theatre. For 63 years, we were Harwich Junior Theatre. And Harwich Winter Theatre, we also had Helicon Theatre there. And now we've rebranded with an umbrella of Cape Cod Theatre Company, but keeping to the same vital mission of Harwich Junior Theatre, which really invites young people into the theater to learn to be in a professional environment
Yeah.
doing theater. And
And-
our
and-
theater is certainly responsible for helping to being the genesis for many other theaters as well.
Yeah, well,
There's
all
so
the-
many people that came through HJT over the years.
Yeah.
So, but you know,
All ages.
all ages, and you know, I think that you know, we hold a mirror up to nature, because you know, in nature people are all ages, and it should be the same in many of the arts, you know. So, you know, and people grow up very quickly, I found. Some of my students that were, you know, 5 years old, you know, now they're in their mid-40s. So it goes by fast, as you know.
Yeah.
But, you know, we have an incredible production of Tequila Mockingbird up now that ends Sunday, and Julie Allen Hamilton directed that. She works at our sister theater, Cape Rep, as well. And it's a phenomenal intergenerational cast. Maura Hanlon and Art Divine's sons are in it as well, and they're certainly well known in the theater community. Jim Byrne, who grew up at the theater and directs the Gold Dust Orphans, among many other plays, you know, from here to New York and New Orleans. He's playing Atticus, and we have just an incredible cast, from Adam Boaz to Karen Dash and Dennis Cunningham. And then coming up after that, we have Oliver, which Sue Kossoff, who founded Wheelock Family Theater in Boston, she's directing that. We also have the Art Center in Harwich Center. We have open mics the first Friday of every month, which are intergenerational as well. And we sort of leased that building for the town, and we put in a handicap bathroom, and we redid the whole inside, and it's a really lovely place for studio space and also to do some smaller works. We're going to have a few weekends of the Gift of the Magi there as well. So, and we have classes year-round, and many of our alumni, as I was telling you before, have really gone on and have done amazing things. So, you know, it's really a part of Harwich. We're on the line, the Dennisport line, and for many years, Dennisport had real problems in terms of, you know, it was a very transient area. There was a lot of, you know, rundown buildings, and but they got into an association, and they've really made it a lovely town, and it's getting better every day. They've really taken it upon themselves to create a village aesthetic. So, and now in West Harwich, there's an association that wants to take on the sea captains' houses and bring that back. So there is a sense of history, I think, that we have to be mindful of. And I think we have to be very protective of our beautiful Cape Cod, because very easily it can change. And, you know, we've seen the changes over the years. Some of them have been so beneficial, but some of them have been to our detriment and to the detriment of young people, I think.
Well, the organization that you're in has such good support, and that's one feature of any successful organization.
Well, it takes a village.
And
It takes a lot of people to make a successful theater.
Yeah.
So I have a great board of directors and great teachers and students and staff.
And it's a fun place to come to. I mean,
It is.
take
It's really fun.
grandkids there, and they want to go early so that they can be on the outside porch
with the jester.
with the jester doing all these little games before they come in.
It's a really lovely way, and it's a very Shakespearean. If you go into Stratford upon the Avon in England, the first thing you see is the jester. And that's why we have a jester at our theater as well. But we are intergenerational. We have all ages.
And at the end, I think they love being able to meet the cast in their costumes out on the porch.
It's hard to do in the winter time, though. So
Well,
because it's,
these are summer visitors that I talk about.
Right. But, you know, it's a beautiful theater. And the Cape has, when I started on the Cape, I think we had 5 theaters. And now there's 23 theaters, Cape and Islands. So, you know, that's really blossomed. The arts have blossomed. Now I notice they want to make a cultural center of the middle school.
Well, that's what to do with that Harwich Middle School. And there have been, you know, suggestions of tear it down and keep the space open. Or
I think they should make it into artist housing and galleries, because you could have both, because there are a lot of young artists who live on the Cape who have a hard time finding year-round housing. There's many artists that come through the theater that would probably stick around if they could afford housing here. So if they could create maybe gallery space, studio space, performance space, and housing for young artists, like they did in Boston, like they
Yes.
did in Portland, Oregon, and many other artistically conscious communities.
And up in Provincetown.
In Provincetown, I
Yes.
think it would be a great thing for Harwich to do. But I don't think you can build a cultural center without paying attention to the youth who are artists and who would love to contribute to our community. We have huge problems on the Cape, as you know. There's a huge opiate epidemic, and we have to find ways to engage young people so that they can become, engaged in life instead of, trying to self-medicate their anxiety.
Yeah, yeah.
You know.
You do have a group which can go to schools and do a performance about these kinds of issues, actually.
Yeah, we actually
Bullying?
do have some, we do a bullying and teasing outreach in the schools, utilizing some of the strategies that Augusto Boal, the famous Brazilian dramatist and revolutionary, came up with. And that's been really successful. It's been a beautiful, beautiful program. But, we try to be socially conscious for sure. When I first came to the Cape, I was an instructor. One of my first jobs was with the Community Services Alcoholism program. So I was an instructor for the driver alcohol re-education program. So when you got arrested for driving under the influence, you had to come to me. So it was really interesting, but I learned an awful lot, and taught a lot. But, that is an issue. It's a prevalent issue. We have a severe alcoholism problem and an addiction problem on the Cape. And, it's gotten more difficult in the times that we're living in, So I hope that, when we talk about zoning, we also talk about zoning and the people who are actually living here and being affected by the growth that we have and the type of growth.
Yeah. It almost seems as though to get a good discussion going, you have to have it up for a vote at a town meeting. I don't know why that is, because many people, caring people, do come to these preliminary meetings and the committee meetings and the selectmen meetings and these public meetings, but then finally to really open it up,
Well, town meeting
it comes to a town meeting, and that's when I would have to say the majority of the people look finally at the issue and say yes or no.
And there's been tremendous energy at our town meeting
Oh,
lately.
yes.
I think it's really wonderful, but it takes a few people to really, have the rallying cry to get that happening. A lot of times it's really, it's how do we communicate, like how, there's some things I find out about, and so I'll go to the meeting, but if, you have to read the paper and you have to, stay present, because it's easy to just get so tied up in your own life, and tied up in the life of a theater that, there's a real world out there too.
Yes, well, indeed, that all of these things as you juggle them and try to make them fit in. If we have, for this particular situation in East Harwich, if we have as many people coming together as the Route 124, you do remember that at one time they were going to straighten that road. They were going to get a lot of money if we did it the way the state insisted, if it were state supported, but it would have changed it, and people living there.
And people didn't ask about it ahead of time. It seemed like it wasn't really put through the people who live there. So it's all communication, and it's letting people know what's really happening. And I think when people know, they can take action. But you know, it's a really busy life, and it's easy to sort of lose track of what's going on
Yeah.
in the community.
Fitting
So-
everything
But
in.
that's why you're so important.
Well, media is important, for sure say that. You know, we've got to fit it all in. We've got to fit in going to theater.
Right. Well, it's
I can,
really
I
important.
can, I can begin to reminisce about some of the things that I enjoyed there. HMS Pinafore. Now, wasn't
Right.
that a lot of fun?
It was. Well, the thing about theater is it can really impact lives, and it can help you have a conversation. Like Tequila Mockingbird that's up
Oh,
now.
yes.
You know, we have young people seeing it for the very first time, you know, and that was a classic when I was a kid, you know, and the movie, who could forget Gregory Peck, and
Oh, yes.
you know, so but the issues that are at the heart of To Kill a Mockingbird are the same issues that we're confronting in many communities, I would say in every community now.
Yeah, fairness.
And all of these lessons, whether it's lessons about racism, anti-Semitism, you know, the Holocaust, which I have a direct, you know, I'm a child of that. These are lessons that have to be taught over and over and over again for each generation. And, you know, the theater is a great way to enter a world where you can be transported, you can, it can be transformative, and you can have conversations with people of all ages that can really change your life.
And at different levels. Alexander, and what was it called? The Terrible, Awful,
Oh, no good, bad day.
Terrible Bad Day.
Right.
And you know,
That was a great show because, you know, a lot of kids have, you know, to be able to relate to the protagonist
Well, here
who's
was
going through a horrible day.
yeah,
and
but here's
realize
this
that you're
kid.
not
Yeah,
the
he's
only
a
one.
big, friendly, jolly kid, and yet everything was going wrong.
I know. So
And at the end of the day, finally, well,
everything was okay again.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, it's really important for kids to learn about life, and you can learn about life in the theater as well as anywhere, you know, because of the stories we tell and the people you meet and the teamwork, the collaboration, the taking risks. I mean, it's all in the theater. The design, I mean, we pay a lot of attention to all of our designs. Whether it's set design, light design, sound design, costume design, the design of a prop, it's all very detail-oriented because, you know, the audience sees everything, so you
Yeah.
have to really be aware of details. And so, you know, and so we're very specific and in how we present things.
and the rehearsals. What's the best rehearsal to go to if you're just going to see it before it opens?
Our rehearsals, I mean, sometimes we have an open dress, you know, for certain groups, if they want to come, like the Fresh Air Kids, we would invite them to our open dress rehearsals, and that was really fun. And but you know, I'd come to a real performance. That's what I say, because often in dress rehearsals we're still fixing things.
The theater has survived the internet fixation that
Wow.
most people have.
Not easy though, not easily. I mean,
As difficult as print newspapers have with
Right.
respect to news.
well, I think, you know, theater's a shared experience, and you know, it's a place where children can learn civility, you know, just by being in the audience. I mean, you learn how to listen, you learn how to actively engage, how to actively listen, how to pay attention. So to me, it's really important to have a shared experience, a live musical experience. As well, theater has blossomed on the Cape, though, you know, you still have to be competitive in attracting audiences. The live music scene has blossomed quite a bit over the past several years. So there's been a lot of growth, which has been really marvelous. But, you know, I think that, you know, it is important for people to go out together and have a shared experience, whether it's in a church or in a theater or in a concert. You know, that's what makes us, that's what humanizes
Yes.
us and gets us to see our neighbors.
Yeah. Seems as though it's important also, and increasingly apparent, that all the separate theaters are now coming together.
Well,
you know,
we have the Cape Cod Theater Coalition.
Yes, and that-
we're a founding member of it.
and the islands.
And the islands.
Yes.
So that's a great thing because as competitive as it can be, we're also all in the same world, and
Yeah.
we also want the best for each other. And to me, like, the better theater is, the more we raise the bar, the better it is for everyone. So, you know, I like being part of that movement.
And how does it work? Is it just the people that are in charge of selling tickets that run that, or is it really the artists that are coming together?
It's mostly like the artistic directors and the development people and
So you meet-
the banks. Like David Willard was really the forerunner of the Cape Cod Theater Coalition.
Oh,
He brought
he's
it
on every
together.
committee on the
I
Cape.
know, he's done an incredible amount. Dave Kaplan, who I think has a show here as well,
Yeah.
he sort of is our chair of the coalition. He gets us talking.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think we've gone over so many topics, and I almost have to say, I wish we had another half hour to extend them even further.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, it's been a good time. Cape Connect is really looking at what's special about the Cape, and you just keep on finding it over and over again. The people, I've got to say, all the organizations that are doing, you know, nonprofit organizations, and we'll be back again. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks a lot for having me.
Yeah. Thanks for watching, folks. Cape Connect will be with you for more possibilities. Take care.